There are basically two methods of communicating with workers, and we're going to take a look at both of them in this movie. First, we're going to look at the IDL attribute method. IDL stands for Interface Definition Language. It's intended to be a language-independent way of communicating with DOM objects, and doesn't necessarily work out that way, but it does work. What I have open here is a working copy of worker setup-done.html. It's where we left off in the last movie. And I've saved it as worker comm-working.html, and I'm editing on the server because we need to be testing on the server, and I have an editor that'll do that through SFTP. I also have opened the done version of this, worker comm-done.html, because we're going to be doing some copy and paste, because it's kind of a lot to type. But in any event, this is our starting place. Let's just page through this for the benefit of those who are typing things in. And that's what we have there. And I'm going to actually start at the bottom here, and I'm going to copy and paste this form from the done version. Let's just go ahead and page through the done version as well for those who are typing things in. And this does actually go a little bit off to the right as well. There we go. And I'm going to start by copying and pasting some of this stuff from the bottom here. So this is in the done version, and I'm going to copy that and paste it in here in the working version. And I'm going to just press Command S to save it. Sometimes that takes a moment because it's on the server. And then we'll go up to the JavaScript, and I want to update this worker callback function. And we're not going to be displaying this message anymore. And set up a variable for error messages, and that is event.data.errorMessage. And if error message, and that'll have an else as well. So if we have an error message, we'll go ahead and display it with display error. We're going to get into error handling in a later movie, but for now we're going to set this up. And I'm going to use my element shortcut. You can see down here under utilities, I have this shortcut for get element by ID, which is just called element. And I'll be using that here, prime result. And so you'll notice way down here at the bottom, I have an element called prime result. Right there, it's an output element, prime start and prime result down there. We have an error, the text content, going to be the string none. And if we don't have an error, I'm just going to copy and paste this down here. The text content will be our value. I'm going to use this comma function to comma-ize it, to put commas in it. So it's not just going to be value by itself. It's going to be like that. So this takes the messages as they're sent from the worker, and it displays them. So that's the whole callback function right there. I press Command S to save. Then down here under utilities, I'm going to do a little bit of copy and paste. So coming over here to the done version, I have isInt and also clear display. So I'm just going to copy those two functions and paste those in. And I'll just put those down in right here. I'm also going to grab my comma function, and that one comes from here. So these are just little helper functions. We'll go ahead and paste that in down here. And in a nutshell, what they do is int tests using various Java methods to make sure that the number is usable as an integer. It doesn't actually eliminate all non-integer things, but anything that can't be used as an integer. So it's not entirely thorough, but it's a simple way to do it in JavaScript. The clear display function simply clears any results or any messages from the display. And the comma function is a little bit of a convoluted way of adding commas to a number. There's no real easier way that I've been able to find in JavaScript for adding commas to a number. So it looks like that. Then finally, I want to come over here into our done version. I want to get the start search function right up here. And this gets called by the form. We'll come back over here and paste this in. right there before init. That basically takes the value from the starting integer element, tests to see if it's an integer, clears a display, tests if it's not a number with the built-in is not a number function, updates our starting element with the comma version of the integer value, posts that message out to the worker using worker.postMessage. So now finally that we have all of these things set up, we're going to come in here to our init function, and we're going to get rid of this little test post message thing. We actually don't need anything else here, but what I am going to do is I'm going to select our element that has the starting integer in it. That's the form element down here. Go down here and look at the form. Right there, that's our input tag. And I'm just going to make sure that that's selected, that it's highlighted, and that's done with the select method. Put in a comment here, focus and select the integer. So when that form gets submitted, this start search function is called, and we can see down here if we look at the form, on submit start search, also with the start stop button on click start search. And that actually posts the message out to the worker, and the worker responds by calling worker callback event by sending a message. So we'll go ahead and save this. I'm pressing Command S here on my Mac, and we'll come out here to the browser and we'll click on worker comm working.html. And there we have it. You notice that it's highlighting that start from form element. And if I just press the find first prime button, find the first prime after 1, which is 2, or if I type in a bigger number, 2, 3, 4, 5, find first prime, 2, 3, 4, 7. So let's take a look at how this works. Posting a message to the worker is as simple as calling worker.postMessage. Receiving messages back from the worker are done with this add event listener. Now, there's really two common ways to receive messages from the worker. One is with this add event listener. We're going to look at that in a moment. But the other method is to use the IDL event handler. Now, the IDL event handler looks familiar. It looks like this. On message equals worker callback. And it actually even looks simpler, and a lot of people do it this way. With all of the modern implementations of workers that I've seen, this works just fine. I can just press Command S here, come back over, reload in the browser, and type in a number, and say find first prime, and I'm getting that message back just fine. The problem is that some of the older browsers, some of the earlier implementations, did not work too well with the IDL event handler. They required you to use an actual event listener. And so I tend to favor the event listeners because it'll just work with a slightly broader base of browsers. But the truth is, with modern browsers, it really doesn't matter. Now I'm going to come back in here. We're going to use the event listener again and just look at how that's done. I type in worker.addEventListener. I have to remember to type listener correctly because sometimes I forget that first E. And I give it the name of the event to listen for, which is message. And I give it the callback, which is worker callback. That's my function up here, right up there. And I give it comma false. Tells it not to bubble, and you probably never use another value, but only if you really know what bubbling is and you really want it to bubble up. So now I press Command S again to save, and we see that this works exactly the same. So really the only distinction is that with the event listeners, it's going to work with some of the older browsers, but with the IDL event handlers, it'll work just as well with the modern browsers. So these two methods of communicating with workers look and work very similarly, and one is not clearly superior to the other. I tend to use the event listeners because the early implementations, the IDL event handlers weren't supported evenly, and so the event listeners tend to work more consistently with older browsers.